Well, we're that time of year again. Lots and lots of homeschool parents getting ready to graduate their kids from homeschooling. And some of you are getting ready to graduate your kids from junior high into high school. I've got a fantastic guest on the show with me today. She's going to be talking with me about dual enrollment and ways to prepare your kids for a post-high school career, whether that's they go into the trades or whether they go to college or whatever they do. We're going to have a fantastic, really fast-moving and interesting conversation. Shellie Doub is my guest on the show today. She is the Director of Recruiting for Dual Enrollment at one of my favorite universities, Cedarville University in Ohio. She is also an independent educational consultant and the homeschool mom of 5 boys. We are talking about everything today. We're really going to mix it up, and you're going to love it. This is the Heidi St. John Podcast. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. So Shellie Doub, thank you for coming to the show today. It's just a delight to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Heidi. I'm so excited to talk with you about dual enrollment today.
It's a lot of things that parents are talking about right now. We're at the end of another school year. Lots of parents scratching their heads, especially kids who maybe the parents are like, okay, we made it through our freshman year of high school now. Maybe they're homeschooling and they're kind of looking ahead, and it starts to feel a little bit daunting. Then you finish up your sophomore year and parents are still kind of scratching their head like, now what do we do? Then you finish up your junior year, people start freaking out. And you can really, with a little bit of planning on the part of the parent working in conjunction with their student, you can eliminate a lot of that stress through dual enrollment. It's genius. So before we jump into dual enrollment, I really want to introduce my audience to you and your passion and kind of what brought you to where you are today.
Wow. Well, what brought me to where I am today is kind of a long story, so I'll condense it. And say that I was a reluctant home educator. So
Yes.
In 1995, I looked around at the homeschool families near me and thought, that is not for me. And
girl, that is what happened to me. And same thing.
Well, then I sent my son off to kindergarten. And by December, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want him to feel like he failed if I pull him out. But he's coming home. I surely can teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? I did not.
I surely can teach kindergarten. Yeah.
I didn't have high school in mind at all when I thought about that. So I brought him home, and that was I called it my marathon because I have 5 boys. I homeschooled them over the course of 26 years. They all graduated from high school, did some dual enrollment work, and then went on to college. Some are still there in college. Somewhere along the way, when we realized how expensive college is, I decided I should go to college too and get a job so that we could help with those college expenses. And because I had done a lot of work in the homeschool community with helping families plan high school and plan for dual enrollment, I ended up working in the dual enrollment department at Cedarville University, first as an academic advisor, then as a recruiter, and now as the Director of Recruiting, which means I get to go to all the homeschool conferences and hang out with cool people like Heidi St. John.
Hey, man, we're hanging out. We're having fun. It's good. It's working for us.
Yeah.
There are lots of different ways that parents can engage in dual enrollment. So first of all, for people who don't know what dual enrollment is, what's the best definition that you'd give a brand new parent trying to figure it out?
Sure. Well, let's first of all say that if you research dual enrollment and terms for it, there are over 100 different terms that we use interchangeably in the United States, because if your state has a program, like Ohio has a College Credit Plus program, you probably just call it that. But dual enrollment simply means your student is enrolled in 2 different educational institutions at the same time, typically high school and college, and they're earning credit for both high school and college by taking a single class, which is a great deal because it saves them time. And usually dual enrollment is discounted or free depending upon your state program, so it saves you some money too.
Yeah, and it's just as important. I mean, as homeschool parents, we know this, right? Where we send our kids to school, whether it's grade school or high school or college or dual enrollment, which is a college, it absolutely matters. So here in Washington State, I live in Southwest Washington. The local community college here has a dual enrollment program, and it's called Running Start here in Washington State. So people are very familiar with the term Running Start. And I have been criticized a little bit because I've been steering people away from it. I'm like, why are we sending our kids to this disgusting school where, I mean, come on, the month of June is coming up and you can see displays on that college campus that frankly, I am embarrassed by as an adult, as a citizen of Southwest Washington, and why I would want my kids to go there and take dual enrollment classes so that I can save myself some money in the long run. I just don't think their soul is worth it. I don't want them swimming through a cesspool to get college credit. And of course, I mean, it's me. So I have a pretty strong opinion about it. I'm just like, why are we doing this to our kids? But what I guess I want parents to hear, because you and I were just talking about a minute ago, on Monday, I talked about this quite a bit because a question came in from a parent trying to figure out what to do with their kid for college. And I was like, it matters. There are so many programs out there now that are available for dual enrollment and for college that are really, really good, but you have to know what you're looking for. And I was thrilled to find out several years ago that Cedarville's doing dual enrollment. You don't have to send your kid to the local community college and have them swim through a cesspool to get really the sort of what I would call a mediocre education at the community college level. How important is it, Shellie, that parents who are looking into dual enrollment, and then we'll talk about this, but then I want to go back to how do we get them ready? Like, what do we do when we're freshmen and sophomore and that kind of thing? But how important is it? We talk about saving money, right? That's the first thing that comes up because college is expensive, but then it matters, right? There are lots of different ways to do it. You just said there's, 100 terms that people use. How important is it that parents do their homework and don't just go, oh, look, dual enrollment and put my kid there?
Well, I think it's super important, Heidi. And I often tell homeschool audiences that when God called you to homeschool, he didn't call you to homeschool so your student could finish college as fast and free as possible. Yep. It's not all about the cost, although that is the number one reason families give us for dual enrolling, which is why they put their students in the local community college or in a class at their local high school, which is taught by a professor from the local community college. And I want to say, first of all, that I believe God is a big, big God, and he puts Christian professors everywhere. But the world is a big, big world, and it is doing everything it can to undermine your students' faith. I can tell you when one of my sons was looking at colleges, we visited a large state university, and the Victoria's Secrets bus was on campus that day giving out free underwear. That was
nice, because that's important in college. That's important. That matters.
I couldn't run fast enough and far enough away from that, of course. But I tell families, you have to do your research in choosing a college, and you don't start with the academic catalog and what degrees are offered. And you don't start with the typical things like how big is the college and how many students are there and what are
their alumni doing?
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
You start with their mission and vision and value statements. And those are published on their website typically. And if you read that mission, vision, and value statement, and it doesn't say anything about the Bible or Jesus or a biblical worldview, then you need to just kind of take a moment and take a check. Now, of course, not every student is going to go to a Christian college. So if you are going to look at colleges that aren't from a biblical worldview, maybe you have a student who absolutely can't do math online and their only option is to sit in a math class under a professor. Then I recommend you call up that college and you ask them what their visitor policies are, and you go sit on that campus and you drink a cup of coffee and you just watch those students. You see how people interact. You listen to the language around you, and you have to determine if that's what you want your student to hear and be exposed to all day, every day. Parents are so concerned about the professors, and I'm not saying that there might not be reason to be concerned, but I'm always more concerned about the peers and the friends that your student is making where they are.
Well, and that's a pretty strong biblical principle. You just hit on two really important biblical principles there. The Bible teaches that when a student is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher. So it absolutely matters who's teaching our kids. And the Bible also says that bad company corrupts good character. And so you have all of these things really coming at your child, your student, well, your child, your young adult. Sorry, kids, your young adult. And we have an opportunity as parents to sort of steer kids in the right direction. I know, and I know you do too, and I'd like to talk about it for just a minute, that not every Christian college, not every college, let me back up, not every college that says it's Christian is actually Christian. And to me, this is more concerning than, if I send my kids to, Texas Christian, for example, that's not a Christian university. I mean, it might have the Christian name on it, but what's happening at the college campus level and what's happening with the students there tells a different story. And so just because a college says that it's Christian, it could be Christian in name only, and you'll find out pretty quickly by taking a tour of that university or that college campus. Is that true?
I think that's absolutely true. Sit in some classes, listen, when you're on the tour, make sure you take a couple of days so that you can sit in on a class and hear what the professors are saying. But before you even spend your time to drive to that campus and put your student through sitting through 6 hours of a tour on a campus and listening to lectures, do your research online, find out. Look up some articles. I mean, my goodness, look at what's been going on the campuses recently. If you would just do a news article search on your campus that you're going to visit, it may give you some really good insights as to not just what the students are doing, but how the administration is responding to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really important. And we've seen how the administration is responding to a lot of things lately. I've been calling them the poison Ivy League schools, where people are spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars. These parents are pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into these schools, and their kids are coming out absolutely radicalized. And what we're seeing, the response of the college professors or the leadership, the administration, the president of some of these universities is kind of appalling. And so parents need to be aware.
They do. And I mean, let's be honest, Heidi, you and I went to college in the 80s. I went to a large secular university. I remember all of the apartheid demonstrations on our campus. Demonstrations on campus today have a very different feel and flavor than they had in the 1980s, because now with social media, you can assemble a group of protesters pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Let's walk it back a couple of years now and talk about how important it is as homeschool parents, whether your child is whether you think that child is maybe going to go to college or maybe they're not. It's very important that they be ready in case they decide, I do want to go to college. That's the route for me. And a lot of parents, I think homeschool parents especially, just go, hey, we're not going to get our kid ready for college because he's not going to go. And then, hey, he's 24 years old and goes, you know what? I'm kind of interested in medicine all of a sudden. And you're going to go back. The only reason I say that, Shellie, is because I have a friend that's actually happening to right now. So, she's got this, 24-year-old kid who showed absolutely no interest, who's been working now out in the world, which I think is really wise, working out in the world for a while, kind of figuring out, oh, hey, I like this, or hey, I don't like that. I worked for, Lowe's, and I decided I don't want to work for Lowe's for the rest of my life. I want to do something different. Somehow got interested in naturopathic medicine and now wants to pursue that career. And she's like, I'm looking back. I can't find his transcripts. I mean, he hasn't been in high school for 7 or 8 years. Walk us through, Shellie, to the homeschool parent right now whose kid has not yet graduated from high school, about the importance of keeping a really good transcript, and how can we make sure that the records are correct and our kids are the best situated for whatever the Lord leads them into after they graduate from our homeschool.
Wow, I love that question, Heidi. And I will tell you that I had a similar situation just last week. I talked with a parent whose son had an apprenticeship out of high school, was working in the trades, and then his boss came to him and said, "You're doing great. I want to move you up to management, but you need a college degree for that. We'll send you to school." But the mom had never made a transcript because the student wasn't interested in it at the time. Mm-hmm. So it's a very valid point. So let's talk about record keeping and planning just a little bit. It is super important before your student even starts high school for you to begin looking at what your state requirements are for graduation. That's what colleges are going to compare and look for on a transcript. Has your student at least met the minimum requirements for graduation? Now, I know that states don't require that of you in many cases, but colleges don't know that, so they're still looking for it. So meet those minimum standards for graduation, exceed them wherever your student has a passion and an interest in exceeding them. I would add to that you need to start their transcript when they begin high school. So you're going to need a planning sheet that has, how many credits of English and math and social studies and electives that you're going to require. And then you're going to need a transcript, which is a separate document where you actually record this information in an orderly fashion to share with colleges. Both of those documents need to be kept in a safe place. They are as important to your student as their birth certificate and their driver's license and their passport. Hang on to those documents. So good file management is super important. I think a lot of families and kids get really hung up on, I'm going to get a diploma. No one's ever going to ask to see your diploma. They want to see your transcript.
Oh, that's good. We should say that again. No one's ever going to ask to see your diploma. They want to see your transcript, unless you send your kid to beauty school, and then they will want to see your diploma. Ask me how I know.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
I learned that Aveda Institute wants to see your diploma, which I was like, I got a transcript. I mean, I have a diploma too, but the diploma was really more for fun. Like, here you go. We got this really great diploma that you can put in your, in your box of memories. That was the first time I've had someone ask for it.
Well, and I have 5 sons who probably have no idea what happened to their diplomas after graduation because they don't have a box of memories, I assure you.
It's a girl thing.
Yeah. So I think that's important. I think test prep is really important and getting a good test score. I know this is a test optional world, and I don't think families know what test optional really means. So let's talk about that for just a second, Heidi. Test optional means that you are not required to submit test scores in order to be admitted to the college. But guess what? If you don't submit test scores, it's highly likely your student is going to need to take remedial English and math courses in their first semester of college because they didn't provide test scores that meet the proficiency requirements for the college. The other way that it can impact your student is scholarship dollars, right? I mean, colleges say they're not looking at test scores, but I promise you when it comes to scholarship dollars, if they have 2 equally qualified students by transcript and one has provided excellent test scores and the other hasn't, it's going to sway the college towards that student. And that's not just true for colleges, that's true for outside scholarships as well. So if you're going on FastWeb or wherever you go and are looking up scholarship opportunities, many of those are going to require test scores.
Mm-hmm. So important. And you can get you can start when your child is a freshman, just kind of getting them into the hang of taking these tests and so that they're not like, bombarded with it when they're a senior in high school, right? You can start really pretty young.
So Heidi, and I'm not recommending this, but with my first son who was the guinea pig, he took
we've all got a guinea pig because we're guinea pig parents. I like to tell my kids that, Shellie. I sometimes will say, listen, I'm new to this, okay? I've never done this before. I can't do that now with my seventh child. It's
Right.
it doesn't play so well.
Well, I don't know. I think my seventh child thinks I'm a better parent than I was with my first child, and I probably was. Wait, not number 7. I only have 5. I can't count. Oh,
I was
my
going to say,
goodness.
wow, we didn't have this conversation. It's true, though. I think you are a better parent. At least maybe not better in terms of how much we love our kids, obviously, but certainly, like, at least for me, I'm like, oh, hey, my kids will say, I can't believe you're letting, so-and-so get away with that. I never would have got away with that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, right. Because I learned that is not a hill I want to die on. Like,
Right.
They're going to be hills to die on. That's not one of them. So you right, I'm doing it different.
Well, and honestly, in my house, it usually means that the older sibling at some point advocated for younger siblings to be able to do that. And then now they can, and it's not fair anymore.
It's not fair anymore. Life's not fair.
Back to our question about test scores, Heidi. I would say that, so with my oldest son, he took his first ACT in 6th grade through the Duke Talent Identification Program. And he didn't surely die, but I don't really recommend that because, by the time he hit high school, he was really done taking tests. But yes, you're right. You can take them early. You can not send the scores to colleges until you've actually seen the scores. Remember, once those scores go in a student's file, they're there for good at the college. So if the scores are low on their first attempt, then they may have to overcome that later. So I would not send scores until you see them. That's good to know. Another thing I think that parents need to think through very carefully is graduation date, because colleges don't know what to do with a 5-year high school plan in some instances. Now, there are some states like Michigan where that's part of their state law that you get 5 years of high school. But a lot of dual enrollment programs through that are paid for by the state are only good for 4 years of high school. So what do you do with that student in the 5th year? Mm-hmm. So I just encourage families to really think about maybe having, if you're going to have a 5-year high school plan, repeat 8th grade or have an 8.5th grade, and then have 4 years of high school that are more traditional.
And your transcript can reflect that, correct? So, let's just say, hypothetically, Shellie, let's just say you're going, okay, this is going to take a little bit longer than we had thought. You're better off to take that high school transcript and shift it back a year than shift it forward a year.
That's my opinion, unless a problem occurs during high school. I talk to students all the time who maybe missed a full semester because of a chronic illness or something. In those instances, you can explain that 5th year of high school a little more clearly than just, well, we thought it would take 5 years for Johnny to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, you said at the outset of the show, and I want to touch on this for a few minutes, how important it is, whether you think your child is college bound or not, to prepare them for college. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so most students choose one of 4 pathways when they leave high school. They enroll in college. That's over 60% of students. They get a job, so enrollment, employment, enlistment in the military, or entrepreneurship. We're seeing more and more young students who decide they're just going to start their own business right out of high school.
Yep. You guys have a great program at Cedarville for entrepreneurship. Carrie Oberbrunner and I were talking about it. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a very fun interview to listen to you and Carrie. Great synergy going on there.
We'll have to do that again. That was fun.
Yeah, that was great. So I can't think of any of those pathways where a student doesn't need to be prepared for college. Obviously, if you're college bound, you need to be prepared. If you're going to enlist in the military, my husband was in the Air Force for 20 years. He still works for them. He's been with the Air Force for 35 years. You cannot progress in the military unless you have a degree. So a little bit of preparation during high school to understand what that looks like can be super beneficial. Might even be helpful to take that math class while math is still fresh in your mind, right, if you're like me and math isn't your gig. If you're going to go into entrepreneurship, there are at least things that you need to know, even if you're not going to pursue a degree. You need to know how to market. You need to know how to keep your books. There are things that you can learn. And then, of course, if you're going into the employment route, I talked about the young man who had an apprenticeship and a few years later found out that he's going to need a college degree to progress. Sometimes apprenticeship programs, especially registered apprenticeship programs, will require some dual enrollment, at least that basic math, speech, and English course, so that you have some good communication skills.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of registered apprenticeships, and that's maybe a topic for another day, but there is a need to have some college level skills if you're going that route, because you're probably not going to want to work for someone else your entire life. Someday you may want to own your own business, and you're going to need some skills.
Well, and this was kind of the point that Carrie was making when we were talking about this, is that in the way that the world is moving and the way the economy is moving, you're wise to have, at the very least, you're wise to have a side hustle and recognize, oh, hey, I have a skill that is marketable. What is that? What is that skill? One of my sons actually trained to be a barber. He got his certificate from barbering school. And so if he ever needs it, he can fall back on that as something he can do anywhere he wants to. And I've always been, we've tried to at least encourage our kids, what are you interested in doing? What kind of floats your boat? What do you like? I think it's fascinating that kids can get all the way through high school and no one ever says to them, what do you enjoy doing? I think for me, at least, I love to tell people when I was very, very young, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, actually all the way through school. My first 8 years of report cards from this little Christian school I went to, I got great grades. I was a good student because I like to go to school. But my teachers will always be like, Heidi's a great kid, but she talks too much. Had to remove Heidi. She was talking to her friend Sharon. We put her in the hallway because she just wouldn't be quiet. No one ever said to me, I wonder if you might be a teacher. I wonder if you might have a career. Maybe we should look into journalism or media or something. It just escaped everyone all the way through high school. It escaped everyone that could have maybe pointed me in a good direction, that might be something for me to consider. And as homeschool parents, we have a front row seat to the gifting that our kids come hardwired with. So that thing that might be driving you as a parent completely up a tree might be the thing that they're going to use in their career later, right? And so we want to keep an eye out for it.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we're just so close to our kids, we just can't see some of those things.
Yeah.
One of my sons, I was absolutely convinced he was going to be a chemistry major. I had no idea. He was in his room drawing all the time. And then he said he wanted to apply to art schools. And I snickered a little bit internally because I thought, you have no idea. Have you even thought about a portfolio? Well, that kid got accepted to every school he applied to and got great kudos on his portfolio. So yeah, we don't know. I do think that one area that, as a homeschool community, we lack in is that college and career preparation. Maybe if we're lucky, there's a class on college and career prep at the local co-op that we send our kids to for one semester.
Yeah.
But college and career prep starts long before high school, frankly. It starts with asking your kids lots of great questions. So when you take them out to eat, or you take them to Home Depot, or you take them wherever, you need to be starting conversations with them. What do you think it's like to do that job? Do you think you'd like to do that job? How many hours a day do you think he works? Do you think he gets a sunburn when he's on the roof all day? Whatever the questions are, but just have those conversations as they are age appropriate. By the time a student gets to their freshman year of high school, I think that they need to spend their freshman year really, really honing in on study skills. I think their sophomore year, they need to do some job shadowing, maybe gets a volunteer job at the local hospital if they think they want to be a doctor or a nurse. Maybe even just spend one day following around somebody in an ad agency if they want to be a graphic designer. They need to have some conversations and start to see what that career field might look like. Sophomore year is also a great time to begin doing some personality assessments. My very favorite is Strength Finders.
I love
it's
that
by
one.
Gallup.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I think it does a great job of telling kids not what they should do, but how they do things.
Mm-hmm.
And then by their junior year, I think they need to start thinking about maybe taking one dual enrollment class, as long as they are academically and emotionally ready for that. And then in their senior year, it's all about college applications and scholarship applications.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about dual enrollment again in the few minutes that we have left, because you said something that kind of piqued my interest a little bit a second ago. You said you should definitely think about dual enrollment in your kids' junior year as long as they are emotionally and academically ready. What do you mean, Shellie, by emotionally and academically ready?
Well, so we have an interesting situation here in the state of Ohio where our great state legislature has decided that students can begin free college as early as 7th grade.
What?
So I hear...
This sounds to me like Barack Obama. Like, hey, put your kid in preschool when they're 2 and leave it to me.
Yeah, in all fairness, when the laws were being rewritten in 2015, the gifted lobby had a lot to say about the fact that, we have a lot of rural schools that don't have gifted programs. So
right.
that was the genesis of that. It was designed for gifted students. But instead, we hear from many, many, many parents of 7th, 8th, and 9th graders who feel like their student is entitled to free college, even though they maybe haven't even completed Algebra 1 yet, or haven't taken a high school English course yet. Mm-hmm. And so they ask us which college classes are easy. And I always
you think
say,
kids are entitled?
Them.
Wait, kids are acting entitled? What? What's going on?
Imagine that.
Imagine
that.
Yeah.
So I would, a student needs to have completed probably at least sophomore level work. Whether they did that as an 8th grader or a 9th grader or a 10th grader, they need to be at that level to begin to have the reasoning and writing and reading skills that they need for college.
Right.
Emotional readiness is a whole different thing. We've talked about some of the challenges, the social challenges students will face. But, I see students all the time who have never failed at anything. And then they enroll in a college class and they get a B or a C or worse.
Yeah.
And they're not prepared for
My
that.
mom never gave me anything less than an A.
Well, it happens in places outside of homeschool too, let me assure you.
Oh, well, I know in Oregon right now, you don't have to be, I don't know if you've seen this, Shellie, but in an Oregon public school now, you don't have to be proficient in reading, writing, or math to graduate.
Yeah, I have seen that.
So they're just like, hey, we're done with you, so go ahead. Goodbye.
I hope that doesn't stick. I really, really hope that doesn't stick.
Man.
But I do know, I've seen some articles in the Chronicle of Higher Education talking about how students, this generation has grown up with a cell phone in their back pocket.
It's true.
And they did pandemic schooling.
Yeah.
And reading is just not their gig.
No.
They really don't love when professors assign them lots and lots of reading.
Because they could just go, hey, Siri. Hey, Siri. Hey, Siri. Right. I mean, that's what they do. I did that this morning. One of my staffers was like, we were talking about Billy Graham. I'm like, how old's Billy Graham? And like within 15 seconds, hey, Siri, how old's Billy Graham? Hey, Siri, when was the Panama Canal built? Hey, Siri, where's Russia? Right. I mean, really? Yeah. We've created a generation of lazy people.
Well, I don't know. I use Siri a lot. So I'm not going to say that.
Well, I mean, I use it too, but it's making me lazy.
I do remember growing up in the 80s, or the 70s, sitting, in the kitchen floor reading encyclopedias because that's how we got information, right?
Me too, right. Well, and the card catalog, right? Right. So, even when I went to college, like you wanted to find something out. Honey, you're looking through the
Yeah.
card catalog. Like, you're going through there. You had to, the just getting the information was a lot of work, but asking Siri is not that hard.
Well, and I think the difficulty with asking Siri or, letting AI tell you the answer when you Google something is that you don't put any reasoning or rational thought into that. So you're just taking information that someone else spoon feeds you, as if it were the gospel truth.
Holy cow, we saw this in the Rona. Boy, we saw that in COVID, right? We're not doing our own. Well, we lack critical thinking skills, right? And so that's really important. And actually, homeschool parents should be teaching critical thinking skills to their kids too.
And communication skills. I mean, these kids text everything, right? Heavens, even the parents text everything. True. I get so many.
True. I know.
I get so many emails that start with "hey" or "nothing," right? Like it's just it's in the subject line, whatever question they have.
It's so true. It's so true. What are we gonna do, Shellie? What are we gonna do? I don't know.
We're gonna teach our kids as best we can, and we're gonna let everybody else worry about their own kids, I think.
It's really true. But you guys have, so I mean, we'd be remiss because one of the reasons I have you on here is because I want so much for parents to look at dual enrollment, but look at it from a Christian worldview. I mean, that's everything that I'm about over here at the show is kind of off the bench, onto the battlefield. If you're going to engage in the culture, engage in it from a biblical worldview, a biblical perspective. Cedarville University is offering dual enrollment, which I think is phenomenal. And you guys have phenomenal professors that these dual enrolled kids have access to. Tell us a little bit about the program that you are helping to oversee there at Cedarville. And if parents are interested, when is the appropriate time to reach out to you? How old does their kid have to be for that parent to reach out to you and say, hey, let's find out about those dual enrollment classes? Yeah,
that's a great question. And I want to start by saying that if you're looking for a biblically based college, Cedarville is one of the best. And it is. I agree. I sent one of my sons there before I worked there. So I can say that both as an employee and not as an employee. And he didn't come out with a degree in lesbian dance theory. He did come out with a degree in music. And he did go to Northwestern and go on and get a master's in musicology. And now he works for a tech company. So, we don't know what their paths are going to be, right? So our job is just to prepare them. So true. But our job is also to make sure that the degree they get is based on a biblical foundation. And so colleges are all about the liberal arts and getting liberal arts degrees. But if your liberal arts degree, and liberal arts really means that you're taking English, math, history, and science in addition to...
I was just going to say, you should define liberal arts, Shellie, because
I know,
now
liberal is a scary word.
Liberal arts just means you're a leftist now. I mean, what? So, yeah.
Yeah, but, it really doesn't mean that at its heart. Liberal arts means a student is well-rounded. So they have taken classes in English and speech and literature and history. And hopefully they've done that from a biblical worldview and not from a liberal worldview. At Cedarville, every student earns a Bible minor. So not only are the professors pouring into your students and teaching literature and art from a biblical worldview, but they're also getting a good, strong biblical foundation. We are a discipleship model school, and that's another thing families can look for. Is the college that your student's looking at an evangelism model or a discipleship model school? Because an evangelism model school is going to take everyone, kind of like these big seeker-friendly churches, and then try to point them towards Jesus, right? Discipleship model at Cedarville, all of our kids come professing faith in Christ. And so then we can really work to help them become good stewards and good evangelists of the word. So that's a little bit about Cedarville as an institution. As far as our dual enrollment program, we do, by state law, have to accept students as young as 7th grade. So Don't send me your seventh grader's grade report, though. They need to have a high school transcript, and they need to have, some good core coursework so that they're ready for college level work.
And honestly, you guys, let your seventh grader be a kid.
I know.
There's just this whole big thing. I mean, it just chaps my hide, Shellie, because you only get one shot at being a kid, and then you're off to the races, right? You either go to college or you go to work or whatever. Why are we pushing our seventh graders? I mean, I'm like, ground those kids in the word. Let them know how loved they are. Give them a foundation so that when the world knocks them down, they remember, oh, this is who I am, because you spent all those years training your child to remember who they are.
Right.
And I don't understand this push. That's in seventh grade. I don't like it.
I think the push comes from fear, and we know nothing good comes from fear. But parents are fearful about the cost of college. They're fearful that their student is going to fall behind their peers. Mm-hmm. And, they're fearful that their student is not, and that thought just went out of my head, Heidi.
Well, I thought you were going to say, I was going to finish it for you, Shellie. I thought you were going to say, we're fearful our kids are not going to be ready. And so we think, oh, you're not going to be ready, therefore I'm going to get you ready starting when you're 12. Well, and I don't know. I just reject it.
And my thought just came back. Parents are fearful that they can't teach the subjects. Homeschool parents are fearful. Johnny's in Algebra 1 and I'm not prepared to teach Algebra 2. So there's this free college thing. So maybe there's a class that will fill that gap for us. It is dual enrollment after all. And so I do think fear drives a lot of those decisions. And in fairness, though, I have seen a handful of really smart kids who are taking Calc 3 in 8th grade. That is not the norm, but it does happen.
Well, and I think it's important for parents to know that isn't the norm, right? So I had a friend, you'll love this, Shellie, all of you guys and your my brainiac friends over at Cedarville and all the massive, amazing entrepreneurs like Carrie Oberbrunner and all these people. I had a friend who, when all of our kids were sort of in high school together. So now my oldest kids are in their 30s, right? But her son, when he was like, I don't know, 15 or something, 14, was like, I'm going to be an emergency room physician. I don't know if he watched like an episode of ER with his mom and was just like, that looks really cool. I don't know what. But she was like, come on, you don't really know. No, he did. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. But that kid, and this is why I always tell parents, I mean, he's an emergency room physician now. So she put him in dual enrollment classes. He fast tracked it into medical school because the kid is just sharp as a tack and graduated from medical school, in his 20s. And I always tell people that kid's 1 in a million. Like most kids are like, I don't know. I want to make it into the front cover of the yearbook. They're not really thinking necessarily this is what I want to do with my whole life. And so this young man really was kind of an extraordinary case study in what is possible if you have a child with that kind of drive and that kind of academic prowess to be able to go into something when they're 15 years old. It's not that common.
Right. But it is very common for students to enroll in a college class early and to do well. Yeah. I mean, I would not sit in this chair and promote dual enrollment if I didn't see far more success stories than I see students who drop classes or get stressed out by their college course load. So I
think parents can raise the bar. I mean, Shellie, what do you think about that? I feel like, we can challenge our kids. We can raise the bar, and dual enrollment is one way to do that.
I think that's absolutely true. But I think before dual enrollment, the parent has to be letting the student take some responsibility for things on their own. I can't tell you how many applications I look at that are completed by the parent and not the student. And in my mind, if the student is ready for college, then they're ready to complete their own application with mom's help, of course. They're ready to use their own email address and not mom's email address for the communication.
But you're saying, don't treat this like your kid's 7th grade science project where the parents are the ones who are doing the boards and the kids are like, standing next to it with their thumb up, no, your kid should be ready. They can do it. Mom, you're cheerleading at this point. You're not doing it.
I don't know anything about that, Heidi, because my kids would never have let me help with a science project. Never, never. But yes, I mean, it is really all about mom. Parents have to step back a little bit. Once a student enrolls in college, the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act kicks in, which means that the college can't talk to the parent anymore about.
Well, that happens in medicine when they're like 11 now. So
yeah. Do you know I used to work in a hospital? So it does happen in medicine, but in medicine, I think they are. My experience when I worked in patient experience was that was true, but for the most part, we would talk to parents and kids. They're young; they sign that paper and let you talk to their, the parents.
Right.
But in
right,
higher ed. Professors, parents can't call professors up and ask why Johnny got a B instead of an A on his paper. You just can't.
Why not, Shellie? This is like the ultimate helicopter parent.
Fostering independence is so important.
Really, and your kids are going to get married someday, and their spouse won't like that either, mom and dad, so just step back a little.
Yeah. I often say it's better that students be ready than that they start early. So better ready than early are your 4 words of wisdom when it comes to dual enrollment.
I love that. Dr. Raymond Moore, obviously one of the heroes in the home education movement, that was his thought in teaching children to read even. He was like, when they're ready, they're going to be so much better. They're going to pick it up so much faster, and they're going to get a better result than if mom and dad just shove them through the thing when they're not ready and didn't and weren't able to do what you wanted them to be able to. They just weren't ready. So I love that.
And isn't that true in all of our lives, Heidi? I mean, there are things that my husband would like for me to do, like go down and mop the floor this evening. But I can tell you, I'm not ready. That's right. Girlfriend, we next time I see you out on the circuit, I'm sure I'm going to see you again before the homeschool circuit's over this semester. We could just have coffee over all the things we're not ready for. That's right.
We can make an entire coffee hour out of that.
I love that. I love it.
Oh, I love it. Well, Shellie, it's just been a delight to have you here. If somebody is interested in finding out more about the fantastic opportunity, which is dual enrollment with Cedarville University, what's the process? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you guys?
So parents can start learning about Cedarville by visiting Cedarville.edu. And you can look at our dual enrollment webpage, get an idea of our admission requirements. If you have questions about whether or not your student is ready for dual enrollment, you can send us an email at dualenrollment@cedarville.edu.
Dual enrollment at Cedarville.edu. Shellie, what a treat it has been for me to have you here. Thank you for coming on the show today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you back out there on the circuit. I've got one kid that is left at home. She'll be a freshman. Can you believe it? My youngest is going to be a freshman this year.
Wow.
Which is good because my oldest kids are like in their, I'm in the like perpetual parenting thing that I've been doing forever. And it's just fun for me to kind of sit and listen to her about what she's interested in. And this gives us so many more options. And I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled with what you guys are doing. I'm a super fan, obviously, of Cedarville University. And I can't wait to see what God's going to do with the rising generation through organizations like yours, which are really partnering with parents to help give the kids the start that they need to be successful in their adult lives. So I think it's fantastic. Thank you for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Heidi. It was fun.
For more information on my guest today, you guys can hop on over to Cedarville.edu or, as usual, head on over to the show notes, and I will link back to all these things in the show notes today. You guys, you have an opportunity as parents to help your children figure out who they were born to be. God says in His Word He has a plan and a purpose for each one of our kids, and He wants to guide and direct parents and ultimately guide and direct your children. So love your kids well today, you guys. You're not going to get a second chance at raising your kids. Love them well. And I'll see you right back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.